That's what they claim to have. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, very well. Yeah, that is. Yeah, but to rule by divine right basically means I am the law. What I say goes. I don't give a shit what you say. Sorry, I don't care because they don't. But I'm the law. What I say goes. Charles I demanded the petitioner rights in 1628 to try to rule without Parliament because he wants to enforce this. If he'd have known what was coming, I don't think he would have done it. I don't think so. This resulted in a civil war from 1642 to 1651, when England became a republic for 11 years. Well, I'm going to tell you now, it never ceased. Never ceased. We became a republic in 1649 till 1660, and in 1655 our friends the bankers were allowed back in, who funded Mr. Cromwell, whose Mr. Cromwell's real name was Mr. Williams, but that is a story for another time. Charles I was executed by Parliament for trying to rule by divine right. 1649 the Commonwealth was declared. We all know what the Commonwealth is. 52 countries captured across the world. Where exactly the same process of what's going on in this country is happening exactly to them countries as well. America being prime example. One of the things that the Commonwealth did was allowed the fleet to go out. The fleet law was installed, but you will learn about a little bit more about that later. The Commonwealth basically mirrors everything that we do. Everything. And if you look at what they did in England, I don't know, do we know about the 13th tribe, the indigenous people of England? It's probably a bit too far back. But what they did is they moved into England and they pushed the indigenous people to the far corners. The Cornish are the original indigenous people of this island called Albion, and they got a tiny little bit at the bottom of the country. If you look at the Native Americans, exactly the same happens. Pushed the Native Americans as far as they possibly could. So that's basically what they created the Commonwealth for. The fleet would now sail to entrap more countries. That's exactly what they did. Charles II took the throne in 1660, repealing the Acts of Supremacy in 1534 and 1559 in 1661. Do we know what the Acts of Supremacy are? No. The Acts of Supremacy is maintained. The first one was done by Henry VIII, the next one was done by his daughter, Elizabeth. The Acts of Supremacy maintains that a Protestant had to sit on the throne of England. Now, like I said, I don't want to get into the religion side of things, I don't get involved in it, but if you actually look at Protestant reforms, you'll find it means something completely different than what you think it means. Charles had a rough time of it, and so did the people of London. They suffered the plague in 1665 and the Great Fire of London in 1666. Well, what do you do if you can't cure a disease? You burn the bugger. And I'm not saying that that's true, but it just seems quite evident. James II took the throne. We had the Bloodless Revolution and he was forced to give up the crown. A bloodless revolution. Now that's always made me chuckle. I just can't get over, I just can't see a bloodless revolution. More like an uprising, I would have thought. Started in Hertford. After they got rid of James II, William and Mary, the cousins, they were first cousins, came to the throne. And they were presented with a document called the Declaration of Rights 1688. A very, very famous document entrenched into common law of this country. But it created a constitutional sovereign, a mascot. A bit like a football team. Little lad runs out in front, little suit on, waves, smiles, takes a picture, opens this, opens that, cuts the cane. Exactly the same thing, mascot. But the Declaration was meant to be, as historians will tell you, wrote by the people. But it wasn't, it was wrote by Parliament. On behalf of the people, I might add. But we've got to remember, who were we and what were we? Slaves. The Bill of Rights 1689 was a very important statute. They needed a statute to settle the succession of the crown. If you look at the actual wording of the document and you actually look at the title of it, it says Bill of Rights settling the succession of the crown. Now, why would they need to settle the succession of the crown? Why would they need to settle it? And why would they need to have one dynasty on the throne of this country? It's very, very important, this. Now, if you read the Bill of Rights, I don't know if you ever have, I would advise you to, or the Declaration of Rights, you can read either document. Look at the wording that they use. There's one particular article in there that says no fines or forfeitures can be given to a person, particular persons, unless first presented in a court of law. The word particular. Who are they talking about? Particular persons. It should be everybody. But there's particular persons involved in it. So when you look at all their law, and you look at statutes, or you look at any law that these people have brought in, do the 180 on it. Completely do the opposite. Whatever they say, it's 180 degrees in the reverse, and that's what they actually achieve by it. And that is absolute fact. Look at anything that, even now, modern day, take any statute and look at it, look what they say. It's the three parts of an illusion. Okay, it's the pledge, the turn, and the prestige. That's how it works. It's all illusion. But the Bill of Rights was a very, very needed document, because it did settle the succession of the crown, and it settled the dynasty, and the dynasty it settled was the Stuarts, and that has been maintained up to this day. And I'll prove this now. I'll prove that our Queen on the throne of England is a Stuart, and there's a reason why she's a Stuart. So they had a Declaration of Rights, and William and Mary took the throne of this country. They settled the succession of the throne from William and Mary, which was the Stuart line, and they settled this dynasty. The bankers got their way, and they had a bank formed in 1694 called the Bank of England. But is it really England's bank? No. It doesn't belong to us. Where do the profits go? Do we get them? Not a penny. So they needed to finalise the whole thing was a document and an act called the Act of Settlement. And the Act of Settlement, they needed to settle where it would go after William and Mary had died. Where would it go? So the Act of Settlement came in. Now what the Act of Settlement did, it finalised and completed the Stuart dynasty in place to use Scotland as a bargaining chip. Okay? That's what it did. How it did it was this. I'll tell you how it did it. The Act of Settlement maintains that the person to take our... I'll start again because I'll make it simpler. When Mary died, Anne took the throne. When Anne took the throne, she had 17 children that were all miraculously died, which is quite a feat, but they all died. I ain't going to say there's any conspiracy, but it's just quite unusual. William was still in control, and he forced through with Parliament the Act of Settlement. The Act of Settlement maintains that when Anne died, the next person to take the throne would be the nearest Protestant heir, which would be Electra Sophia of Hanover. Now, Electra Sophia of Hanover died before Anne did, so it had to go to her son, who was George I. What you don't know is that Electra Sophia of Hanover was James I's granddaughter, so she was a Stuart. Yeah, blood was a Stuart. She might have been called Hanoverian, but she was a Stuart. So her son was the great-grandchild. That's it. So George I was the great-grandchild of James I. So we had instantly the Stuart line descending all the way down to Elizabeth II to this day. The Stuart line is there. It's been hidden in Hanoverian, Saxe, Coburg, Gotha, the Windsors, but it's the Stuarts. Why was it done? Because they needed to use Scotland as a bargaining chip. And if you look, and this is very true, you can check this out. Blair in 10 years handed over 7.2 billion pounds of stuff that doesn't actually exist, but we'll talk about that later, to Scotland. If you go to Scotland, you don't have to pay for eye tests, you don't have to pay for any form of medical treatment, and as I believe they're just about to remove the council tax, and guess who's got to foot the bill? Us. So this is why they needed the dynasty to be the Stuarts. The Stuarts are the Scottish dynasty, they've got Scotland as a bargaining chip, do as you're bloody told, and we'll do this for Scotland. Right. Then you look at a constitutional sovereign. When I served my affidavits on Her Majesty, Brian Gerrish, a friend of mine, rang up, and he rang up Sonia Bonici, who's the